Hello, everyone. My name is Abby Licatino, and we are about to start a fun interview here with Mr. Brant Osborn, with the president of the Federation of Teachers and School Employees. And this should be an interesting interview. I have a bunch of questions we're going to ask him. He has not seen them in advance, so this is going to be kind of off the cusp for him. But we're going to kind of get to know Brant and how he is the president of the union and where that is for our community. So, hi, Brant. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Abby. I appreciate the opportunity. I did want to say I really appreciate you as a citizen. It's very inspiring the way you've gone about reaching out to every candidate who would sit down with you and talk, the hours that you put into this, knowing how important this election is. I do appreciate that. And also this opportunity to reach out. I'm Brant Osborn. I grew up in St. Tammany Parish on Queens Drive in Slidell, right down the street from Superintendent Jabbia and his father and a wonderful mother and his brother. And it's just kind of odd sometimes we're perceived as at odds, and it gets kind of Shakespearean sometimes. But I think he and I both want the same thing, which is for this district to rise back to where it belongs. I left. Apolitical was my last school. That was 5th grade. My family left to Kentucky for job opportunities my dad was chasing. He wanted to get rich quick and retire before 40. It never happened for him. And then he passed. As soon as I could come back home, I did. I got my degree in teaching at English, Eastern Kentucky University, and I came right back to St. Tammany Parish to teach. So 19 years. And I just got to the point where you used to be able to shut your door and just focus on your kids and teach, but all the distractions crowded in. And I just kept seeing my coworkers struggling. And there was an opportunity to take over this union because it was not doing its job. It was not advocating for teachers and school employees, partly because it had been bullied into submission. And you can punch me in the mouth 100 times. I'm just going to keep coming at you. So I decided to leave behind a job I love, to take on the most challenging experience of my life, but it is an adventure and I don't regret a moment of it.
Wonderful. Oh man, what a great introduction. I'm so glad I didn't know most of that. So thank you for letting us get to know you as a person before we get into this as you as the president of the union. I do have a question. When did you start your position as the president for the union?
Okay, I was elected on May 19th, 2022. My team and I won pretty handily, not to brag, but I mean, we worked hard, and it's hard to campaign when you're working full time. So I do feel for some of these candidates that have those full-time jobs. I decided not to take office immediately because I wanted to finish. I needed to say goodbye to my career and my kids. So I finished out those 2 weeks and we just hit the ground running in June. My first day in office, I walk in. Nobody's told me this. The outgoing president hadn't told me this. The whole staff quit, so I'm like, okay, now let's go. Let's get this done and get this started. So we were able to reach out and retain one of those individuals. She's a tremendous person. We do like to hire retirees, pay them a good wage, and give them something to contribute to our community.
Wow. I didn't know that. I hadn't realized you were so new in the position. And that's pretty incredible. So you're only been there for what, like 5 months?
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I might have said 2022, 2021. Oh yeah.
2021. Okay. So it's like a year and 5 months.
I put in a solid year and then some, but like Indiana Jones says, it's not the years, it's the mileage. So we went through a whole lot in that first year.
Awesome. Yeah. Fantastic. Wow. That is hit the ground running, and you have been involved in a lot of things. So wow. So you're coming straight out of teaching right into the union. So very interesting. Well, let's go ahead and get into the questions that I have. And just so the audience knows, I got these questions from the community. I didn't really come up with them. The union is not my forte as far as topics. Definitely not something that I've done on any of the political realm. So some of these questions may not be your questions, but if you have questions, I know Brant will be open to answering them, but hopefully I will answer or ask most of the questions that the community has. So my first question is, what is the role of the St. Tammany Federation of Teachers and School Employees?
Okay. and I was just going to try to interrupt you and kind of provide an overview, but that's a great first question because that's what I wanted to do. So people have to understand when you hear the word union, particularly in the South, it has a negative stigma. And I get where it comes from 100%. It's the behavior of the national unions, no question. But it's kind of like saying all cops are bad. Well, that's not fair because that's not true. Not all unions are bad. So just like I like local government, I like local unions. Now we are attached to the American Federation of Teachers. I like to emphasize the American part because those are the values that I celebrate, the ones that bring people together instead of divide people. Unfortunately, that organization is fairly partisan. It's very partisan. Not as bad as the other major union, but still certainly alienates a lot of our folks. Most of our constituents, most of our teachers and school employees are conservative, just like the rest of this district. We're apolitical. We don't care as a local union. When I go to help a teacher, I don't ask, who did you vote for in the last day? None of that. We look for what's wrong. How can we help? And, sometimes we help folks that, they made a mistake, but how do we recover? We can't afford to throw people away for a small mistake. So how do we recover though? But it's about taking ownership, not just trying to sweep things under the rug. So we have a concern for our individual members and potential members, but we also have a mind at the system as a whole, which serves all of these folks who serve these children. So it's kind of a balanced view. So the role of the union, I know this kind of a roundabout way of saying that, the direct role of the union is to, and we have collective bargaining, to bargain for wages, benefits, and working conditions. It covers a lot of things. We do have a collective bargaining agreement. So one of my jobs, and this is what I noticed, and this is our current agreement, I noticed as an employee and even as a building rep at Slaughter High School, that is just a piece of paper if there's no one there to enforce it. So just as I see management routinely step on school board policy, state statutes, the same thing happens with this contract. So one of my roles is to make sure, and sometimes a phone call will fix it. Sometimes we have to file a grievance, but it's a process. It's a procedure to make sure that teachers and school employees are treated fairly and get their contractual right. Now, a secondary role is, the St. Tammany Parish School Board, they are a subdivision of government. And my constituents have First Amendment rights to petition their government. We exist in a culture of silence and a fear of reprisals. So one of my goals is to protect my members if they decide that they want to speak out on an issue. I don't have to personally agree with an issue. That's a great thing about the First Amendment. I want everybody in this community to have a right to get on the agenda and a right to speak without fear of reprisals. So, though my specific purview is my constituents, I want this board to be reformed to where all of the public can be a part of this. So I have a primary role to, uphold the contract as it stands and to revise it over time to improve, as I said, working conditions and increase benefits and wages. Keeping in mind it has to be fiscally sustainable, and this is a very generous tax base, but there's government ways. Let's be honest. You can't do it in such a way that it's just going to fall on its face in the next year. So you have to balance all these things. So I guess that's my role, is to balance all the concerns of my constituents, but also keep an eye on the system that serves all these kids.
Okay, great answer. I understand. I'm learning as we're going. One of the things that came up, and it's not one of my questions, but just to go along with what you're saying, and just to kind of reemphasize. So your position is elected. Is it by the public or by the teacher, the people involved in the teachers union? How is that done? And then as far as funding, like you were talking about some of the funding, like does the funding come from the state or from government entities, or are you independent? Like, how does that work?
Okay, so this is a bottom-up organization, unlike another union, which is top-down, where I wouldn't like that scenario because I would think that would make you susceptible to influence from the top. This is a bottom-up organization. That's how it's structured. Okay. So our funding is our dues. So our teachers, our school employees pay dues every month. And that's how we are able to fund this. Everything from my salary to the building we operate out of. And just like I want the school board to be fiscally responsible, we try to be as well. So we downsized as soon as I got in, and we saved 18,000 by shutting down a suite that we didn't need.
Wow.
So it's dues money, and that's sacred to me because these people work hard for this money.
Mm-hmm.
I never want people to feel like they're not getting their money's worth. Although, honestly, for the amount of money people pay to insure their car, a big part of this is just to insure your career as far as occupational liability coverage. And, you know, I have a lot of negatives against the AFT, but Stephanie always points out to me, that's where we get the insurance from. We couldn't afford that. That large membership allows us to be able to offer that as a part of the dues, because you just wouldn't believe, well, you could probably imagine the liability these folks face, you know, whether you're a SPED professional, you know, working, doing your best with an IEP and all the paperwork involved. You know, maybe you go to break up a fight and the kid gets injured, you can be personally sued, you know, and so having that protection gives them peace of mind, and it also offers some legal protections. But yeah, as far as me, I was elected by the membership. Only members get to vote. So when you have collective bargaining, you basically are a monopoly. And I don't particularly like monopolies, but here's why the state of Louisiana favors that. If I didn't have a monopoly, you would have all these other competing unions in here trying to compete for the attention of the same set of people while we're trying to move forward as a district. It's just better to have a partnership between the board, administration, and a union, and just try to do the best you can to make sure that's a great partnership. We've moved forward in a year, but we have a long way to go. But I think I answered everything. It's a 3-year term. So this is year 2. I love competition. So anybody at the end of my 3-year cycle that wants to run, I encourage them to do so. We won't campaign. We're just going to do our job and do what we do, which is promote it on social media and communicate it, because we do believe in being competitive and working hard for our members.
That's great. That's great. And so you're just St. Tammany, the parish of St. Tammany.
Yes. Okay. So it goes up, and I do want to talk favorably about LFT, because I feel they share our values of being, I think with the politically, what is she called? The legislative director. Okay. She says we're politically agnostic. We don't care about the politics. It's the issues. Who can we work with? And they do. They reach across the aisle all the time. And of course you would have to in a state that's largely conservative. I don't look at labels. I know who is what we're willing to work with and who's willing to work with us. Sometimes people would just put down the blast doors. Let's say they don't like public schools and they want to purely privatize. You know, sometimes you can't find common ground, but I talk to everybody because I believe you can in most instances. Even with charters, you know, I'm not as dogmatic as I used to be. I can kind of see a place for them, but I just know this, charters degraded the Jefferson public school system. And I'm a staunch defender of public school systems because I think they're part of the fabric of America. I read one time they're described as the 8th wonder of the world because we take everybody that shows up, we take them. You look at these studies on these charters, 4 out of 5 in Louisiana are out of compliance on the number of kids in poverty they take on their roles. So they're cherry picking kids. They're not providing the SPED services. But at the same time, we need to be providing what we say we provide. And that's why we have a dyslexia charter there now, because we failed to do that as a district. Now we're trying to hustle and be what we said we were, which is great. We need to get there, but we should have been that in the past. Don't say you're something and not be that thing.
No, that's great. I think that's really good. Awesome. So I think in that discussion, we probably answered some of my questions, so we may go through those faster, but let's get to our second question. You answered this. Are you a chapter of the American Federation of Teachers headed by Randy Weingartner? How is St. Tammany Union different from this group?
Okay. Yeah. So again, we are, so that's how it goes. You have the national, and you have LFT, and then you have your local. So per capita goes up.
So
Now,
LFT is Louisiana Federation of Teachers.
yes, Louisiana Federation of Teachers.
Okay.
So out of our dues per capita goes up. I do want to say no dues money goes to candidates. That has to be a donation through something called a COPE fund. We were trying to get a COPE fund. Well, actually, we have it approved. We just have to get it up and running. But our council is focused on local politics only. When I say local politics, I mean local school board and Bessie District 1, which represents St. Tammany. We will never endorse any other type of candidate. We're laser focused on our issues. If I didn't see it as so dire right now in public education and the way that this board has conducted itself, I would have just stood back. Because in the end, whoever gets up there, we're going to go try to work with them anyway. But it is a broken partnership between the two sides, simply because we have tried to be a true voice for teachers and school employees. They're focused on PR and making the district look good, and that's how we have, sunk it to this point. So to go back to what you stated, look, I can say nice things about Randy Weingarten as well. As AFT, I mentioned the insurance thing, but the criticism stands. In my view, and I don't get to say, I'm just the president of St. Tammany, that's all I care about, but I don't get to say how that organization presents itself. Now, it is a structure, so every year, and I didn't go this year, look, I'm busy, but I didn't go to the convention, but I can bring X amount of delegates, and those delegates will vote on who gets to be president and the agenda or whatever it is that the communications and issues that they're going to promote. So we didn't go be a part of that. But as you can imagine, in the South, the politics are different. So most of the members are in New York. Imagine the number of union members in New York City, okay, versus St. Tammany Parish alone. And then you got Chicago, you have California. So if I bring some bus owner operators up there, some teachers and paras, we have all kinds of people we represent, but I'm saying most of them are conservative, so they're probably going to be fish out of water up there and not be able to influence any of the conversation. But just to make people realize, so AFT has like 1.7 million. Only a tiny fraction of people go up there to vote on that stuff. Most teachers and school employees who are union members are too busy working and trying to sustain their lives, their families, and take care of these kids to even pay notice, to have input or anything like that. And I think we do a good job as a local union trying to get data and information. And it's good with the surveys and things like that. But to have people consistently come out and be involved is a reach. So I got a little mad in the meeting last night because I knew this was going to happen going into this. As soon as we picked people, that they were going to try to staple the partisan ways of the AFT onto our local union. And I get it and I understand it, but it's not fair if you know me and you watch what we've done to be different. These people need a group. I've watched individual employees get picked off and swallowed up and discarded by this machine. I've watched board members be intimidated by this machine. Only another machine can take on this machine. I'll call their machine Goliath and I'll call mine David, much smaller mom and pop type deal. But we do make a difference, and these people need that. In this era of shortages, these people are like, I've never seen so many people just quit. Like, you sort of get to a point of no return, right? With the pension, you're not going to get Social Security. You're maybe 11 years in. Let me try to hang on. No, these people are quitting because the conditions at their school are such that they just can't do this anymore. Psychologically, financially, these people are being beaten up and abused in some cases by students, or psychologically abused by administrators. So I took this over, like I said last night at the meeting, I took this organization over because it needs to exist. I'm not going to push any kind of agenda down here. I'm pretty stay in my lane kind of person. Now, as far as all the hot button issues that AFT may talk about and have an opinion on, and different people may talk. That is not the role of our union, but I will do the best I can to have a taxpayer accountable board. So no matter what that issue is, you'll feel safe and comfortable expressing community concerns so that that locally elected board can weigh in on that. That is not my role. I just, again, believe in American values, American institutions, and to brag on public schools one more time, a taxpayer accountable board, if you could truly have that, is far better than a corporate board on a charter, attached to a charter.
Good, good. I like that. Very good. Good answers to lots of questions. So, okay, my next question here is, I think you've answered actually all of these, so I'm going to move on. Okay, and then do you want to go? I mean, I have a lot of people asking questions about specific things that your union takes, like I can list a bunch of them, and I don't know if it's going to be the same answer for all of them, or if you want to give specific answers.
The only thing I couldn't answer, obviously, something confidential, like a specific case.
Right.
Yeah, but if it's a topic, throw it at me.
So I'll list them all, and if it's the same, or if you want to go through individually, you can. But like lots of people asking about medical mandates, masking, CRT.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do them, because that's a big.
It's a bunch. Okay. Yeah.
I've evolved on this issue. Why? Talking to people. All right. But as soon as I took this role as representative, my access to information became much greater as far as what employees truly wanted. Okay. And so when it came time, they finally gave local control to St. Tammany. We did a survey, and I went down there to report before the board voted. I believe it was unanimously to make, and that's what I think it should be, voluntary. Overwhelmingly, employees wanted the mask removed. It just, for all the reasons. And they were just ready to turn a page and ready to move forward. Nobody I've ever talked to in this district wants a mandate on a vaccine. But I'll give you one example to my approach. One thing they did want was COVID days. So whether they were getting COVID or they got quarantined, some people eventually ended up getting docked money because they only get 10 days. And so we kept trying to get the COVID days, So Superintendent Jabby, actually it was his father, that was always the chief negotiator, put 5 COVID days on the table, but he attached not a mandate, but a vaccine incentive. And I knew immediately that would just rip our workforce in two. And I said, look, they really want these days, but you either take that vaccine incentive off or just take it all off the table. And they took it all off the table. So we as a union, sometimes I get a light bulb goes off. We have a health and welfare fund. There had been a reserve that had been set aside years ago. And we created a program with the attorney for the trust that allowed person to submit paperwork if they had been dock pay. And I think the benefit was up to $300. So it was just a little something that we tried to do, because I'm sorry, that's not important enough to rip people apart. So that's where I stand on that, and that's where people are. Okay. I think if you ask most people, even if they didn't say medical freedom, that's what you would find amongst our workforce. We do have folks that are more sensitive and things like that, but that's where choice comes in.
Right. And you being the voice of the teachers, you have to, as the president, go with what they wanted. So it's great to hear that you did a survey to find out what they wanted to do. And you were just representing them by, saying you wanted to, do the masks and delay school too. Wasn't that part of it? Like delaying the start of school?
Well, okay. So I'll roll that back. So some of that was before my time. Okay. And, well, okay, so in the original shutdown, that was in March. So the governor just said shuts down, but then when they reopened, I think they delayed. I think
it was the delay in August of 2021. It was the second school year. So like it's the end of the year and then.
Yeah. So Yeah, both of those votes were, highly debated.
Mhm.
I don't think we would see that again. And I'm going to tell you right now, here was I think look, I wasn't president then, but I think most employees just wanted to go in, because what happened is it took away a bunch of holidays, which teachers and school employees rely upon for their mental health, and
Yeah.
whether they had a trip planned or not. And kids need the same kind of refresher to be able to come back. So it was such a grueling year, the fact that those holidays were taken off, and that was done poorly. That's one of the things I kind of ran on. They didn't really have a calendar committee. It just unilateral. I really think Pete Jabby just created a calendar, but he says the union did it. I tried to get in on that meeting, wasn't allowed. So the old union president and administration got together and they created that calendar that took away so many of the days. But yeah, the way that works, the union controls the calendar, but whether or not to start or delay school, that's a school board. That's a school board thing. And I think that's such a big thing. I don't know. I mean, I guess we would see if we felt there needed to be a survey on that. Guess we'd want to see where we are. But I'm just telling you, people would just want to move forward based on everything that happened. There was an interesting moment. It's kind of a sidebar here, but Beth Heintz made the motion to send administration to the table with the Federation. And I keep trying I'm going to call it the Heintz Motion to give her a little bit of more of a legacy. She's got a great legacy already, but I keep trying to tell them management wants to just push us in the corner and only deal with us on their terms. But if the board wants us to go to the table with administration, I'm game. They just have to make a motion and vote on it as a body. And that's what happened in that meeting. The majority of people wanted the Federation and PJ Abbey to go and work out this calendar. So that aside, I hope new board members will realize the power they have when they have a union that has collective bargaining, because these administrators, like they think they're running the show, and that's not what it's about. So anyway, COVID's behind us. That's my view, and I think that's the view of most teachers and school employees.
Okay, good. Let's move on to the other topics. CRT. So do you have a view on that, or union?
So I guess the first one, I know that's a hot button issue, but technically it's a working concern or whatever. So I would play a role here. But as far as other hot button issues, that's for the community to debate. But I'll speak on CRT because that is one that a lot of people talk about. Critical race theory, it's sometimes intellectually dishonest to just say that's not in our schools, because it is not in our schools. But you have to understand that the concept means more to people than just what the actual definition is. So you also have to pay attention to other things. So the way I just call that is ideological curriculums. We do not want ideological curriculums of any bent in our schools. We believe, and this is school board policy, we believe it should be politics neutral. No teacher should show partisan bias on a particular issue. That's also in our collective bargaining agreement in the academic freedom section. And I'm just going to read this one small part if I can find it. The instruction offered should be based on fact and be free from bias. The board's endorsement of the concept of academic freedom should not be construed as permitting an employee to promote his own views of a personal, political, religious nature to the students in the classroom setting. And that says it all right there.
And that's in your
that's in our collective bargaining agreement under the academic freedom section. So you have to understand. So even you might take that concept, academic freedom, and apply it in Californian schools. That's going to look a lot different than over here. So realize that our document lines up with the standards and values of the community.
The community. Yeah, that's good.
Look, with the ideological curriculums, I go with vigilance over paranoia. There's a certain hysteria because look, we're looking at a national thing, right? But look locally, be aware of what it looks like, but look locally and have a board that has policies that force administration to keep them in the loop. They were completely cut out of the loop on a K-2 adoption, which did have some ideological inappropriate material, developmentally inappropriate material as well. So, and that was pointed out to me by Lee Barrios. So she knew about it. Jen Kerrigan knew about it, but the school board didn't know about this adoption. So why in the world is that? How in the world is that possible?
Right.
And to the credit of the board members, several spoke up. Michael Nation most eloquently, but several were upset about the importance of local control and how they have to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the administration, they did their little soft shoe trying to get through it. They put some poor girl up there to catch the bullets. I sometimes think that's why they have so many supervisors, like human shields, right? I'm going to catch the criticism that should be going toward these highly paid folks. That's my thing.
Okay.
Curriculum has to be local control. I believe in that. And as far as CRT that's not a K-12 thing, but also you have to be aware of other things that might come in.
Right.
I'm going to throw one at you: social emotional learning.
Mm-hmm.
That came up in our closed union event. One of our members asked about that.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing, devil's in the details, right? Particularly if you have something called transformative social emotional learning. Look at what's coming. Don't go for the buzzwords. You got all these people trying to make money and this is going to save your district. Stop, pump the brakes. I want to get back to writing good curriculum locally.
I like it. That's great. Great answer. Okay. Next one, gender identity.
Again, a hot button topic. We don't even ask, like, if you look at our questionnaire, we didn't even ask about any of these things. If you read it, it's a good government thing. I need a board that's taxpayer accountable, just like the taxpayers need a board that's taxpayer accountable. Mm-hmm. I do not perceive this as a threat that's coming here. You know what I mean? Like, it's local values, and I don't think that's an issue. I will say it's obviously a hot button, incredibly divisive topic, and that's why I don't think it's appropriate in schools, because we have to have kids in an environment where we're not ripping each other apart, we're not divided. Think of it from a teacher standpoint. If you're going to teach something that's you view as radical and it's against your values, that's going to divide our workforce as well. So it's just, but I don't see it coming to St. Tammany.
Right.
I just don't see it coming to St. Tammany. And I know this is like a hill somebody's ready to die on. Again, vigilance, not hysteria, not paranoia. Some believe it's already here. I do think there are things to keep, you can't have blinders on. If somebody presents you with evidence, it's got to be investigated.
Right.
Let me spin the other side of this, though, because I've encountered teachers who are afraid to teach the actual curriculum because of how it might be perceived. We can't be so sensitive that we can't teach tough concepts like slavery, Jim Crow, the things you and I learned in high school, right? American history. That's what we should be teaching, American history.
Right.
And we're just in such a hyper-partisan environment, and social media is a sphere where we rip each other apart. And I just see that happening. And there's so much pressure on teachers, you know what I mean? So as a parent, I would just ask that if you see something that, raises your awareness and makes you want to find out more, go local, start with the teacher, start with the principal. If it's investigated and looked at and you're definitely seeing it, it's being ignored, keep going up. Keep going up.
I like it. That's good. But none of these things are going to be coming from the union. Is basically.
Oh yeah. I mean, I guess
that's like, I mean, we want to know what is, like, and that's, I think you said that, like, you don't have to worry about this coming into our.
I will not allow, I'm so defensive of our boards. I would not allow a workshop, anything to come in here that is going to create controversy and disruption in the workplace. I'm just not going to do it.
Okay.
That is not what I believe a union is for.
Good.
That's for local control. And I can't say that enough. And,
yeah,
those events of local control, when I went out the night masks were debated in Covington, it was very intense, very passionate, but it showed me St. Tammany, it showed me parents, it showed me those folks that are plugged in and they want to speak their voice. So I could just tell you, if something like that was coming, they would show up, right? The community would show up in force to let their voice be heard.
Right. All right. Good. Very good. Okay. So this topic, it would be parental rights, involvement, PTA, moms clubs, dads clubs. Like how would that interact with the union, with the teachers and all the schools?
I absolutely seek partnerships with local organizations. We're part of the Chamber of Commerce. I think that's important. Mm-hmm. I don't know the name of the specific group I'm attached to, but it has to do with mental health and well-being of our community. There's a lot of great organizations out there, but even smaller and smaller, right? I think we need a vibrant PTA at each school. I think we need to have a district PTA. Now you have to be careful with PTA, right? If you look at their national charter, just like here, right? The national charter has some things people wouldn't find appropriate, but shrink it down to the local and stick to it's supposed to be 6 main points, but in St. Tammany, they take off the 6th one, and it has something to do with making sure the district is fiscally responsible. Isn't that wild? They took that one off. I wonder whose idea that was.
That is interesting. Okay, good. And then we just this is one of the views people want to know about is like, what are your views on the teacher and substitute shortages?
It is a crisis. It is an absolute crisis. Let me start with the subs first. And Abby, you've been a part of this issue and reaching. Abby was there the night that the administration invited, I guess it was 4 different reps from this third-party entity called ESS. I don't even know what that stands for anymore. But what they do is they recruit subs, and they can actually recruit full-time personnel. I just don't believe in outsourcing something you can do for yourself. Disgusts me. It absolutely disgusts me. These people in a central office get paid a whole lot of money. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying they don't work hard, but hey, work harder. Work smarter and work harder. Your salary, everybody I encounter and I deal with on a major level, and this is not envy, I'm just telling you, I know what their salaries are. They dwarf my salary. This is a 24/7 gig. Mm-hmm. Work harder, people. Don't outsource your work, right? Don't waste taxpayer dollars doing what you can do for yourself. Now, I think we've succeeded in lighting a little bit of a fire. Mm-hmm. It looks like they're moving a little bit. Now, I tried to get on the agenda, and then I tried to be recognized on the agenda. Got shut down. It's humanly impossible to get on the agenda. But I wanted to share that, we're putting skin in the game. I don't want to just say no, right? I want to provide solutions. And it's a small amount of money compared to what the school board can do, but we're a mom and pop. So my council approved $5,000 to be used as an incentive program. They say they can't pay incentives. ESS can because they're a third party. Well, we're a third party, but we're not going to charge overhead, and we're going to supply the money, right? So, we're really trying to help because we know if these subs get in the system and are taken care of, they're gonna help maintain the health and wellness of our full-time staff, and that rolls down to the kids.
Right. I love that. And I thought that was pretty amazing. So in case you guys didn't know, the union has stepped up and donated basically $5,000 of their dues funds to go towards helping with the substitute crisis and providing $100 bonus to people that stay for at least 10, right? Is it a referral bonus, or does the money go to the actual new?
Right now, it's a recruitment bonus. So, So for our members, because we're dealing with dues money here, I don't want to give it to. Let me say this real quick, and I hate to do this, but it does bother me sometimes. You got people that won't join the union for this reason or that reason, but they'll take any benefit that's out there, they'll take real quick. You know, and so you either like us or you don't like us. Either way, But if you don't like us, then, don't darken our door. So, but the $100 would go to a teacher or school employee who's a union member, and they hopefully can recruit a person. Right now, you have to go sign up at a school with a principal. So part of this is an ulterior motive to show how long it takes these people to get into the system. Then once they're actually hired, as long as they work 10 times within the first 45 days, the person that referred the sub gets $100. So that would effectively be, if we paid it all out, that would be 500 sub jobs fulfilled, which is a decent size, right?
That's awesome. And it is, that's fantastic. And it's 10 days at each of those.
Yeah.
So you cover, you're covering huge amounts of absences of teachers.
And it's not saying they're going to stop subbing after that.
Right.
But we got them in there and we got them doing it 10 times. They survive. So hopefully it would just keep going. And then we'll go back to the table, 5,000 of us. 5,000 of them is like nothing, right? But 5,000 of us is substantial. But if it works, I'm willing to go back and ask my council for 5,000 more. We have to shore this thing up. Now, eventually through collective bargaining, I want to do something where if they'll supply the money, the union would administer the fund, the incentive fund, for free. But at that point, because it's contract, then we could open it up to non-members. And the best part about that would be there's 5,200 total employees. So that would be an opportunity for 5,200 people to recruit. And I think that would be successful. That's awesome. Again, would save the district money. They said it was going to save them money to contract with ESS, and that was a lie. It would cost more.
Yeah, a lot more. I do have a question. How many members do you have in your union?
I would tell you, but the LFT, it's kind of like the Tuscan Raiders, hide your numbers. I could just say we have thousands.
Okay, that's good. That's fine.
It's just, I don't even remember the reason he said. It's just, just don't say numbers, but I could say thousands.
Okay. All right, good. Well, that's great.
It's neat to think. I sit in my office sometimes when I'm not in the field. And it's just, and we help so many people, and just sometimes it's an email, sometimes it's a phone call, sometimes it's hours and hours working on a case, and it's awesome. But even those people are just a fraction of the total number of people that we serve. So it's humbling. That's great.
Okay. This is the last topic, and then I have more questions, but the last topic people wanted to know the union's view on is discipline of students. Do you have an opinion on that, or what you suggest, or, what the unions, suggest?
I personally believe, as an individual and as president, that I'm just going to say discipline in the schools is number one. But my specific focus right now is violence in the workplace, particularly against students and staff. I don't want to give her name, but the teacher who was assaulted, teacher who was assaulted at Covington High, filmed on TikTok, justice system really let her down. I think the school system let her down, is one of our members. And that was just one of the most vile things I've ever seen perpetuated. And it's happening all the time. It doesn't necessarily end up on TikTok and on that scale to where somebody's put out, but people are being punched, bitten, kicked, cursed. Okay, so it is a complex issue. I'm going to give you my solution first. There's a state statute regarding discipline committees. We don't really have one. We have a discipline handbook committee. The discipline committee would be all stakeholders in the committee coming together. When I was told that I could place some folks on the discipline handbook committee, I mentioned violence, and he said, oh, well, this is just updating the handbook. So the issues we dealt with: hair color, piercings, whether or not you can keep a phone in your pocket. I know that's a big issue for a lot of people. It's not for me. I don't want my people getting beaten up. I don't want a picture of somebody with a hump bitten out of their arm. Now, I think locally we can deal with this. We have to stop. Look, I'm 100% behind parental rights, but everybody has to understand the individual rights of your child cannot destroy the individual rights of another child to learn. It cannot destroy the career the mental well-being of the professionals charged with helping that child. I'm not saying throw children away, but some of these practices, we don't have hard consequences. And the soft consequences we have a lot of times become systems that can be manipulated. I'm hearing stories where a kid flips a desk over and they bring him to the office and he comes back with a popsicle. What is that teaching the rest of the kids in the classroom? You know, and I don't want to get too ranty, right? You know, stay off my lawn, but this has to be addressed in a rational way. Again, I don't want to just punitively destroy kids. Every kid deserves humane treatment, coaching. You know, Guy LeCompte, one of the folks that we endorse, that's, you know, his philosophy is to coach folks, meet them where they at and build them up. Don't let them, there shouldn't be excuses. And look, children lie, okay? I lied as a teenager, right? You're trying to get out of trouble. Even the good kids will lie, going back to the subs, good kids will lie about a sub. Oh, the sub didn't do anything. They didn't pass out work, all this stuff. They'll cover for each other. And that's just the nature of the beast. But from top to bottom, these issues have to be dealt with. Now, my primary concern, again, is violence. I've watched a fellow teacher lose her career because she was punched in the head multiple times. It's difficult. And we have to get tough. I tell teachers and school employees all the time, if you're assaulted and you're battered, file charges, not with the SRO, file it directly with the police department. Don't let it get swept under the rug. Assault against the school teacher has some hefty penalties. Battery against the school teacher has hefty penalties. Sometimes that's what it takes. Now, regular discipline, obviously, you don't want police involved in regular discipline, but these principals have to back their teachers. Central office has to back the principals. Again, I'm big on parental rights, but parents have to understand the whole situation. I want everybody to have due process and be treated fairly. I know there are instances when kids are not treated fairly, but when it's consistently, this is a problem, we all need to come together. If we act like the kid is not the problem ever, the system can't function.
I like it. That's good. That's good information. I think the accountability is probably the biggest thing. And that comes with discipline in a family. You know, I mean, as a parent, you can warn a child, I don't know how many times, but if you're not going to back it up with what you've actually threatened them with, there's no consequence and there's no accountability, and the child's going to be unruly. I see that with my own children. So you have to have the accountability to actually hold them accountable to whatever you have put in place as far as the discipline if they've act incorrectly. So no,
let me pivot that to the union.
Mm-hmm.
I call it falling on your sword. There's just sometimes when, you know, it's due process. Sometimes when the person's there, they 100% did it. Don't make excuses. Fall on your sword. The goal is to recover. And what we try to do as a union is to repair that relationship, because nobody likes the discipline process, right? It's stressful. It's whatever. We try to get the poison out, figure out what the problem is, and restore those people so they can work together.
Okay, good. All right. So going back to our questions, I only have 4 more of these. Are teachers required to join the union? And if they don't, are there any negative consequences? And can teachers opt out without negative consequences?
Yeah, I would not want to, I don't want to run an organization where you have to be in it, right? I want you to join my organization because you believe in what we're doing. You see the value of it. You see that this network doesn't just help you, but also helps your coworkers, the other job classes, and it all works together to help these children. And if you don't think that's happening, I don't want you to be a part of it. Or look, I'll just say this. We try to be as far removed as AFT as we could possibly be. But for some people, because they have per capita that goes up, however small of an amount, they don't want any of their self attached to that. And so they just opt out. All right, so there are no negative consequences. You just don't get all the benefits of being in the union. Now, in a union that has collective bargaining, we have what's called the duty of, not fair responsibility, the duty of fair representation. Okay, I'm learning too. So, for instance, if somebody receives what's called a just cause letter. It notifies there's going to be a formal hearing about an incident of concern that could lead to discipline. They have the right to union representation. They have the right to waive union representation. Okay. Even for non-members, and I know I had my little snarky remarks, but even for non-members, never waive your due process. Okay. My job is just to come in, level the playing field. You might get talked to differently just because I'm sitting in the room taking note. And I want everybody to just have a fair chance to not be intimidated and get it out. I'm not an attorney, but I can help you identify mitigating circumstances and stuff like that. And I'm going to do that for anybody, member or non-member, because again, we have that duty. So the thing you don't, it's not really that there's a negative consequence. It's just, you don't get what I view as the true protections, which are the legal protections, the occupational liability protection. You know, for a non-member, I'm not going to call our attorney to work out a case for a non-member. I'm just going to use my brain and my experiences, because when I call that guy by the minute, that's dues money, right? Yeah. So they're already getting a freebie. I'm already driving over there. So all my salary, all that stuff in that hour or however long it is, they get it for free. Well, it's not free. Nothing's free, right? Other teachers and school employees paid for me to be there for you, who's not paying in. So, you know, it's like I'm torn by that concept. Yeah. And a lot of members are torn by that concept, you know, whether you want to call that a freeloader or whatever it is, the parlance of unions when they're trying to trash people that don't want to join. But there's no negative consequence, but very few, I know some, but very few will actually turn away the benefits, right? The free dental and all those things. They take the benefits, but there's no true negative consequence, but you just don't truly have the full protections, and you're not paying in, right? You're not paying into this thing that's helping everybody. Right. You know, it's like when I pay taxes, there's stuff you pay taxes for, you wish it wouldn't go to that, right? But you pay taxes. And you benefit from the system. And, you know, I can get into my libertarian strand for a second, but I don't want to do that. You know, we do pay too much in taxes for sure. But we do try to control costs and make it cost effective. But to land the plane, there are no negative benefits, but I hope people see the positive benefits, including the community who cannot join our union. So.
Okay, good. So that goes into the next question, was what are the benefits to the teachers for being in the union? And then the second part is, what are the benefits to the schools and the students, if any, if their teachers are a part of the union? Does that make sense?
There's no way you get treated on the job that's like, you're not given preferential treatment on the job because you are a union member. If I can address, I think that's what that second question.
No, well, address the first part, which is the benefits of being a teacher in the union. Okay. So if you're part of the union as a teacher.
All right. So benefits of being a teacher, and I'm throwing in school employee as well. Because that's what I do. I mean, right. It's all of us. We don't teach in one-room schoolhouses. Yeah. So the value is knowing you're part of an organization that doesn't sleep on issues. They fight. We're constantly watching. We're constantly fighting. Like I said, people are too tired to come down to these meetings. So much would happen at these meetings if the union wasn't down there. Yeah. Folks like yourself didn't come down there. So we're always going to be down there. We're always going to raise the alarm, not just for our members and potential members, but also the broader community, because right. The schools in St. Tammany are so vital to who we are. But yeah, there's no, you know, you do have, again, occupational liability if you're personally sued for a particular incident covered there. You got some legal things if your job's on the line. One thing we do that other unions maybe don't do, I view I always tell people HR is not your friend, and risk management is sometimes your enemy. The policies written and unwritten in HR and risk management are often antagonistic to the employee. if an employee is beaten up or they get hurt on a job, you need to be treating those people with dignity, respect, and helping them through that process. So for members, we will help them. And sometimes it just takes CCing my name on an email. We will help them with that process. And if I can't answer the question for the member, I call. Now we don't provide an attorney to go to workman's comp court, but if we get to that point, we'll refer somebody. Beyond the contract, there is a mechanism called a school board grievance that employees can file, and it's actually based on a state statute that they don't quite follow, but they can have anyone represent them. And in the union contract, it says the Federation can choose to represent anyone in any dispute that they have, any bargaining unit employee. But I'm not going to choose to represent a non-member. It's resources. Right. It's my time. I feel bad sometimes. I mean, I'm sure this has happened to you in this process. I have 100 texts that have to be answered. I have 10 phone calls. Some people are not paying into this system that's benefiting everybody. So again, we have that duty, but it can be frustrating. But there's no real penalty. You just don't get all the benefits. But I will say and I want to point to this because we've heard really divisive rhetoric. One time Superintendent Jabbia talked about Federation employees and traditional St. Tammany employees. And it was during a time of dispute. And that is absolutely divisive language. And this is when the slogan was one team, St. Tammany Parish Public Schools. And as my Stephanie Underwood came back, she's the executive vice president. In a speech, she said that, we've been since 78. We've been part of this community, 1978. This was the L.C. Burkhalter Union. As a teacher, made this out of nothing. 1991, we got a contract. We got a contract for 30 years. And I think because we have been a voice for teachers, a true voice, everything we have is at stake in this election. I truly believe that. Everything that even potential members get the benefit of this whole book. This can be taken away at the whim of the school board. Something that's existed for so long. And unfortunately, Elsie's approach in the beginning was she was a fighter. Then it became like family, and then it became incestuous. And it was just not a union anymore. It was co-opted. So we had a second union president come in, and I don't like to speak poorly of her because I literally watched her get bullied. And then you got me. So non-members, members, they got me. I did want to point out union members cannot be discriminated against. And we've gotten whispers and words sometimes that administrators look down on union members, and that is against the union contract. In the same sentences, it says you can't discriminate against race, some kind of background, can't discriminate against a person for being a union member. This is something that is constitutional, right? The right of the people to assemble, to petition government. This is unions are an American institution.
Right. Okay.
But like I said, American Federation of Teachers, I'm stealing that American. It is an American institution, and all employees benefit from it. And I argue that once we get this district worked out, the kids are going to benefit because we're going to be a magnet for drawing other people. I didn't address your question about teacher shortage. When these folks come in, they'll come here probably because they see me on social media, they see me fighting, but they also know we have this contract. And in 2024, we hope to be able to still have this contract, but improve it. And that's going to create a stable workforce, because that's what these children need, a stable workforce. People that start their career here and end their career here. And that's what I hope to achieve.
Love it. That's great. Actually, that was one of the things that's in the next question. Part 2 of that question, let me explain it just a little better. This came from a friend. What are the benefits to the school and students, if any, of the teachers being a part of the union? So I understand the role of the union is to represent the employees and the teachers. How does that benefit parents or the schools and the students by having you as?
Yeah, okay. I think in a lot of ways, I can just start with simply the stability that person has. And whether they're a member or not, I think they have more stability in our district than other districts, okay? Because of the process, the different benefits. But let me broaden that out to my vision. And this is something I rolled out at our last membership meeting. Our local constitution, which was chartered in 78, again, has certain action committees enshrined, and we've really expanded on this concept. We're not where we are, but here's where we want to be. For all the major bargaining units, that would include teachers, paraprofessionals, on down the line, they'll have a small group of union members, and they're the experts, right? They're the experts. That's where the knowledge is going to come from. I'm not a genius. I don't know all these job classes. I know high school and I know gifted. I don't know elementary. All this stuff is out of my wheelhouse, but these are the experts and I trust them. And so you have those groups. Then I have some smaller groups, the librarians. We're going to get a gifted committee, technology committee. So the idea is central office is divorced from reality. Is what it is. They are completely separated from the reality of the trenches. They're fighting a war from a distant war room instead of being on the actual battlefield. It's not saying they don't have skill sets and things like that, but if you saw during the gifted presentation last night versus what somebody actually said was happening, completely different. Yeah. So if we're able to bring that good information to the board is not going to just fall for the PR campaign of the administration. We're going to be able to raise those issues that are really going on in the hopes of addressing them. And so that's the way this district's going to get better. And that's the way these schools are going to be the best in the state and compete nationally. And that helps the child. That helps the child. But it's about the experts. And that's what's been stolen in all of these things. High stakes testing, no child left behind. You know, we should all have been super suspicious when the federal government said no child left behind. What a laudable title, but what a stupid, clumsy effort. And imagine that coming from the federal government. And we just, in Louisiana, we've doubled down on stupid. We have kept high stakes testing. It shouldn't be high stakes. That has completely warped everything. So as we solidify St. Tammany, I think our voice is going to project to Baton Rouge. I think we're going to end the high stakes testing era. And that will ultimately steal education back for the benefit of these children, steal the joy of teaching and learning back for the benefit of all. I mean, that's what's been lost. It's supposed to be the science and art of teaching. We've crushed the art and we've got junk science, not real science.
That's good. That's good. So my next question is, what value does the teacher union bring to the students? I think you just defined it, the stability of it. So basically, the more I'm learning here is the union is an advocate for teachers and school employees, that you guys are their representative when they feel like they don't have a voice. And you're a voice to the community, a voice to the school board, and a voice to the central office. Does that sound kind of like in a nutshell?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We locate the people who are the experts, who can lend us their expertise, and we are the mouthpiece for that. We also encourage folks to come out whenever they can to give their point of view, and we will protect those folks. We're all about the First Amendment. You know, teachers have certain limitations. You don't want to create a disturbance in your workplace. Right. But they can petition government for the good of the children, for the good of all.
So by having that voice, the teachers are more secure in their position, so they're able to be more of a stable force for their students. So in that kind of way, that's how it's a benefit to the students and to parents ultimately, because the teachers are providing that stability that some of these students maybe don't even have at home. So I think that's good. Awesome. Do you have anything else to add to that?
And okay, and then that's just from the nuts and bolts of teaching and all those things.
Mm.
But this district is maybe not unique, but a former board member told me one time, he said, you know, I've been watching this thing for 40 years, this machine, he called it. You can only hope for incremental change. And I said, hold my beer, man, because we don't have time to wait for incremental change.
I like it. I feel like this election is that that as well. So that's my last question. And I think this is probably the most important one for me, is how do you see the role of the local union in this election and the future relations with the school board in 2023?
Well, I think it's exciting to see so many people that came out. Our process was to put out a questionnaire, very lengthy, and I'm very appreciative of those who did that, took the time to fill it out. Everybody who filled it out, we interviewed. For some that were just, I appreciated, some people were not seeking the endorsements, but that they filled it out anyway. I really appreciate that. So I just called that person personally because I didn't have to put it through committee. I just wanted to know them, because ultimately, you know, new people are going to end up, whether we picked them or not, we're going to work with them regardless. Mm-hmm. But we are hoping the folks that get in there, and we believe we've got tremendous picks. We believe, or we hope, that they will look at every policy and open it up. And they will realize their power as the policy-making body of St. Tammany Parish. Mm-hmm. There are policies that you just know were created by management for the benefit of management. And that's not for the benefit of the people. Mm-hmm. And those board members need to be good representatives. They need to be above influence. We do not seek to have undue influence. We want to have a voice. The board is the most important thing. The people are the most important thing. So therefore, those representatives are of the utmost importance. But again, we're there. We're the other side of the coin. We're going to give the information, that good information. And it's up to the board to weigh it out, right? So our constituents are taxpayers, but they also have to weigh that out with other voices, groups, mm-hmm. and come to good decisions. So we just believe we elected people, or elected. We're supporting people who as a whole will have the skill sets, the temperament, the ability to remain above the influence, and who will work together to provide proper oversight over every single aspect of this $500 million a year endeavor, whose sole purpose is to educate these children. But you have to have business-minded folks. It is a complex puzzle. Let me tell you, I'm no business guy. I mean, I'm an English major. Stephanie's the business person, but you've got to have a diverse group of skill sets to be able to manage this beast. You need policies that allow for oversight over curriculum instead of administration just jamming it through and expecting the rubber stamp. Mm-hmm. This current board is not truly a rubber stamp. A lot of times it feels that way, but there are certain issues where they try to like show their displeasure, but this time and again, they get outmaneuvered. And I just, in the same way I hope to be a benefit to our teachers, school employees, and kids, I want to be a benefit to the board by saying, hey, that was illegal. They broke open meetings law right there. Mm-hmm. Just wanted to let you know that so that you can correct that. Mm-hmm. I want them to get their own attorney so they can have their own independent oversight of what's happening. Games are being played. They were played last night. Is what it is.
Yeah, I like it. I also share the optimism. I see a lot of potential for the next board. Now they're going to have an uphill fight. I tell people if the ship is going in the wrong direction, they're going to have to stop the ship and then turn the ship and then start the momentum again. So we're looking at some hard 2 to 4 years for this next board. But I think like you, I think it's worth the investment of getting to know the candidates so that we can make sure we pick the right hard workers, because it's going to be a tough fight and they have a lot to address. And so we need to make sure we have the people that have the stamina for that, the wisdom, the humility, and the the openness to have communication to work with a lot of people, including the board, including the union. So I think I think that's a good way to end this. And I appreciate your time, Brant. Do you have any last words that you'd like to speak to the audience?
This is something that came up last night that I want to put out there. I'm all about transparency. I want to bring greater transparency. It's not going to happen now, but I think with the future board, the concept of open meetings negotiations, particularly if you're a conservative, look that up. Open meetings, collective bargaining. What it does is when we go into negotiations, it would be a public meeting so that public observers could see what's going on. Watch how the sausage is being made. LFT thinks I'm crazy because seasoned negotiators will tell you that puts me at a little bit of a disadvantage because I represent so many different bargaining units with sometimes competing needs, whereas management is, that's a monolith. They're all together. And also somebody might grandstand just to say, look, I shook my fist at the union instead of trying to work in good faith for a common goal. But I don't care about that. What I care about is restoring the public trust. And what is wrong here in this parish is the culture of silence and the fear of reprisals and the secrecy. Rip it open. Let's look at it. We have nothing to hide. The union has nothing to hide. So if you don't like our candidates, ask your candidate if they support open meetings bargaining. If you're a conservative or libertarian, it's an ideal, right? Because these are public dollars. These are public dollars. It's the public's money. They should be able to see what's going on. So I just want to put that out there. I want to make it a campaign issue. Hopefully it'll be embraced and hopefully we can see that in the future.
I like it. This has been a really good interview. I really appreciate you being so open and honest. I just want to let the audience know, I know that you are open and willing to talk to anyone about anything. Again, Brant wasn't given these questions in advance. He wanted to do it on the cusp. And so he is giving you guys, a legitimate response that's, and that's what he's going to give to you if you ask and have a conversation with him. So I appreciate your time, Brant. Thank you so much. And hopefully this will help the community get to know the local union a little better.
I hope so. That's very important to me personally and also to my organization. So I appreciate you having everything that you're doing. It's awe-inspiring. I have an organization. You're just a person, right? And you're doing all these things. And I think
independent, just a mom.
Yeah, just a mom trying to make a difference. But that's huge. That's huge. And I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Brant. Have a great day.
Thanks, Evan.